Hey, happy Friday, everybody. Hope everybody had a great week. We did.
Isn't this Thursday?
Well, this is Thursday, but they're watching this on Friday.
Oh.
Thanks for giving that up there, Dad. Appreciate that.
Sorry.
Thanks. Yeah, normally, actually, the last few months, we have been posting late on Friday, but you're going to see this early on Friday. So, good job, Dad. Yes, happy Thursday/Friday, everybody. Okay, so today we are going to talk. I'm not going to do any demos, but I want to go over a few issues, a few things. We had a deal happen on Facebook today where there was a fairly new person that was having trouble getting the router bit out of her router. And so I want to address that and kind of show some tips and things that Dad and I do just by instinct because we've done it so many times. And what you might do if you're having a little bit of issue on a few different things. So first things first, installing and uninstalling a router bit. So this is, we've got two different routers here. This is the little DeWalt. This is the bigger Porter cable. Actually, it's a discontinued Porter cable. But when I take a router bit, actually I'm not going to, when I take the router bit out of this DeWalt, this is the way I set it. I take the base plate off, or the base housing off, and this is what I do. And this has, as you can see, a shaft lock. So this spins until it gets to a certain point, and then that shaft lock takes place, and that's when you can back that nut off. Okay? So, that's that. We forgot to unplug the phone. I can hear the phone ringing in there, but that's all right. It'll go to the recorder. All right, so we just keep rolling, folks. Now, this is an older router. This does not have a shaft lock. So when I take the router bit out of here, it takes a double wrench setup. Now this particular one, the wrenches that came with it, I don't know, we lost them a long time ago. So we use two open end wrenches, and I'm going to stand up for doing it. So we put a wrench there, and I find that taking the router bit out on this kind with a double wrench, I like to leave the router base on. So what I do now is I just squeeze those together. Now, let's see, yeah, and that router bit it comes right out. However, the issue that was earlier is that, was on the Facebook group earlier. Let me give us a little bit more room in there. What we want to do, if this router bit is stuck, this one isn't, but very often on a call like this, that router bit gets stuck. So what you want to do is, let's just assume that is stuck, is I would place the wrench like that, and what you need to do is this gets kind of jammed in that collet sometimes. And in order to get it loose, you can do it a lot of different ways, but I'll just set a wrench on it like that, and I'll tap on it, and that will bust it loose from that collet. So what happens is, this is the collet for that Porter cable. What happens is, this gets, I don't know, am I on camera there?
Yeah, you're on camera.
So this gets jammed in there. It's tapered, and it gets jammed in there, and sometimes it doesn't want to let this thing loose. See, this is split. So as this, that's what tightens that router bit up. As this squeezes on from that nut, it goes in there, and that taper causes this to squeeze. That's what holds the router bit in. But sometimes that doesn't want to let loose, so if you tap on it a little bit, definitely back here on the shaft, never tap out here. And
never tap near the cutting point, near the cutting edge.
Yeah, you always want to tap back here. So that's why when I did it, take that out, I'll put this collet back in.
You might point out that it's very important that on occasions you want to take that clear out. You want to spray it with WD-40, put it back in, and keep it clean, because if that gets filled up with sawdust, that's one of the things that causes it to jam up in there.
That's absolutely true. So you can look down in that shaft, and this one actually is been cleaned out quite a bit because we do it on a regular basis. So yeah, you do want to clean that out once in a while, and again put 3-in-1 oil or WD-40 on that taper so that it stays nice and clean.
Yeah, and the lube won't stop it from tightening up, but it will allow it to release when you want it to.
Right. So then to tighten it up again, now I wouldn't want to, I don't want to, it depends on the router, but sometimes if you push it in all the way, it's fine, but sometimes the shaft on the router down in the armature will cause it to go all the way in, so you'll need to back it out. If it's in there, how far does it need to be in there to really be nice and
Well,
and stable?
at least a half inch.
At least a half
Depends
inch.
on the length of the router, but at least a half inch to 3/4 of an inch in the collet.
Right, and the thing is too, if it's all the way in, depending on the length of the bit, you'll get some bits that are like, you know, like our profile bit or the SC50, that is a very long bit. So that would
Hold
go,
those up so they can see the difference in the length.
see the difference
Yeah.
in length there? This is the
Hold on
SC50.
just a second. Okay.
That's the SC50, and see how much longer it is? So that will go all the way in until it stops, and that gives you all kinds of room. That gives you a full inch. I don't know that on this one I would do that, just because I want to make sure that I've got plenty of vision in here, so that it's not in there all the way, so that the router motor isn't down close to the base. So I wouldn't probably put that one in all the way.
Just at least a half inch,
Yeah.
maybe a little more.
Okay, so that's that. Now, installing on the shaft lock, what I would do is, and again, look at there. So if I drop that all the way in there, that's no good at all, obviously. So it's different per router and per router bit. But yet if I put the SC50 in there, I'm sure it'll probably go in and stop. No, actually that's a really deep hole, so it wouldn't. So even that one, I wouldn't go in all the way. I would go in, and that's probably in, geez, what, 1.5 inches?
Yeah, about
So,
an inch and a half.
Yeah, so if you're in a half inch, that's half inch to 5/8, that's plenty to go in there. So on this one, I would, again, use the shaft lock, and as you turn this, you'll see that as soon as it hits that spot, there, now that shaft lock is engaged. This thing has a pin that goes in and engages that, and at that point, that's where I will just cinch it down.
That's why you only need one wrench on that.
Exactly. This one doesn't have a shaft lock. This one does. Now some routers have a shaft lock on top. They're just, you know, depending on the router. So that's pretty much it as far as the routers go. Another thing that I wanted to touch base on a variable speed router. This is a variable speed router here, this little DeWalt. I always run it at full speed. That's just and that I think on this it's like 33,000 if I'm not mistaken.
It's either 28 or 32 or 33.
Actually it's 27. 16 to 27. So I'll always run it at maximum speed. This one is at variable speed, so it's always at full speed. So that was the other thing on there. Now, in regards to router bits, I'm going to go ahead and pull this one back out. Again, I engage that shaft lock. I loosen that up. I'm going to pull that out, get these routers out of the way. Now, as far as storing your bits, this is what I store my bits in. And you'll notice that every one of my bits, except for this one, because this is by itself, every one is either in a tube or it's got the little, I don't know, what do you call that, Dad? I call it rubber protector at the end.
Yeah, it's a plastisol.
Plastisol,
Yeah,
that's what you call it.
plastisol tip.
So it's got a plastisol tip on it so that these can't bust into each other, because if they do, they'll chip. That will damage your bit, and then it needs to be sharpened. So all of your bits should be completely protected from each other as far as the tips of them. So either have them in a tube, which all of our bits are either come in a tube, or they have the plastisol on the tip. So that's always a good thing, because a carbide is really susceptible to chipping and damage if you don't. But you know, I see a lot of guys and a lot of people just take their router bit and throw it in there, and you know, and they'll get chipped and nicked, and it'll definitely shorten the life of your bit, no doubt. And then the last little piece, something that Dad taught me a long time ago. When you're routing, wouldn't necessarily take place on that. Let's do it on this one. when you're routing, let's say I just got done routing a sign, and you guys can probably see this on many of the videos. After I'm done routing the sign, let's just assume I routed a big sign here and there's sawdust all over the top of the bench. I can remember being about 11 years old, and I got done, I turned the router off, and I took the router and I set it like that on the bench. Dad said, no, 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 don't do that. And I said, why? And he said, because if you guys notice, when this router is running, there's a vacuum going on here. It's pulling the air in here, and it's coming out here. That's that electric motor in there running. So if you set this on the table like that, and there happens to be sawdust on the table, it sucks that sawdust right into that armature and right up into the router. Not a good thing, guys.
Not while it's still running.
Not while it's still running. If you wait till it stops, then fine, set it down. But if it's still turning, there's still some vacuum going on there, you set it down in that sawdust, and if you do it, you'll see it. It'll suck that sawdust right up in there. Matter of fact, when I was up in Oatman, every once in a while I'd be carving and there'd be a fly buzzing around and it'd suck a fly right down in there. That's really cool. Anyway, just a side note there. So that always just gave me such a kick when I sucked flies up with my router. Anyway, anything else that you can think of just from a beginner standpoint, Dad, that we can pass on to these guys?
No,
Ladies and gentlemen.
it's just one thing on your router bits. We don't have it here, and I should have one. You can take a 2x4 block and drill 1/4-inch holes in it,
Yeah.
so that you can have a block to set your router bits in. If you do that, you don't have to worry too much about them banging into each other.
That's
because
true.
they'll be sitting in a...
I hadn't thought about that. That's really good, because we have that out in the shop.
Yeah.
We have several different places where we have.
We'll show that on a video later on.
Yeah.
But just take a 2x4 and say on 1.5 or 2-inch centers, drill 1/4-inch holes, and that way when you take your router bit out of the router, you can just put it right in that block.
Yeah.
And that way you'll have them, and you don't have to worry about the tubes or the tips or anything.
Right.
They'll be there for you. You see which one is which.
You just got to remember not to throw your wrenches around where they'll hit that.
Yeah, you have to be
block.
very careful when you're taking them
Because
in
they'll
and
be
out that
exposed.
they don't bang into each other,
Yeah.
because they will chip.
Or if they hit the floor, if you knock it off and they hit the floor, they could bang into each other and into the concrete if you're on concrete floor. Okay, I think that's, okay, I think that's about it as far as, I'm sure there's something, if you guys have questions on any kind of beginner stuff, just let us know. We'd be happy to answer your questions. I'll put my email up here. The other thing is the announcement for the next LTS, the live training session, is going to be October 17th. Let's see, today's Friday, Thursday/Friday. So it will be a week from tomorrow, October 17th on Saturday, same time.
How about 2 weeks from tomorrow?
That's what I said, 2 weeks from tomorrow. Good catch. 2 weeks from tomorrow. And here's the other thing is, because of the way GoToWebinar sets up, guys, we've got a maximum of 100 that can tune in. Otherwise, it costs us a tremendous amount more of money. I won't go into the figures, but once we pass that 100 threshold, it like quadruples our cost on what it costs us to do them, to broadcast these. So for the time being, we're going to keep it at 100 until we are absolutely forced into it. So don't waste any time. Now, I'm going to try and put the actual link to get your invitation. I'm going to put that either on the screen here somewhere or in the description. I think I can do that. But if it's not on the screen, like up in here somewhere, then look in the description below and I'll put it there. That will allow you to not have to write me and get the invitation to me. You can go right to GoToWebinar and register. So be sure and do that, guys. So the invitation should be either here or down below. Click on that and you can go right and register, and then you'll get an immediate email back where you'll be done. But whenever you get the invitation, be sure and register. Otherwise, just getting the invitation isn't enough. You got to have the registration. So, okay, I guess that is about it.
Wrap it up.
We will see you on Saturday morning for coffee and questions. Got a good one planned. So everybody have a great weekend, and we'll see you on Saturday morning and bright and early next week. Have a great one. Bye-bye.